All right, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about, or in this lecture, we're going to talk about producer surplus, consumer surplus, and deadweight loss. We are not going to do any real math today. In Unit 4, when we talk about trade and we talk about quotas and tariffs, we will talk more about this. This is just an idea to show you how price floors and price ceilings can create a misallocation and can eat up or destroy, I guess if you want to use the word, producer surplus and consumer surplus. It does not benefit either. And I'm just going to show you graphically. We're not going to do any math, but I just want you to look at it graphically and understand it that way. All right. Producer surplus is anything extra that they get. So a producer who sells something is they get more than what they were willing to settle for. And consumer surplus is they save more than they were willing to spend. Deadweight loss is anything that is taken out of society and is no longer a benefit to society because it is now gone. And we're going to talk about how price controls, price floors and price ceilings, in this one we'll just look at a price floor, can create deadweight loss and eat up consumer surplus and producer surplus in the long run. Okay, so let's take a look at consumer surplus and producer surplus if we imagine we're going to go buy a car. Okay, so let's say the buyer is willing, right? Their max price is $32,000. The seller is willing to sell the price for the car for $20,000. Now, neither the buyer, no buyer goes it, right? You don't go in and say, okay, I want to buy this car and my maximum price is $32,000. You don't do that, right? And the seller also doesn't go, hey, I have this car here. I'm willing to sell it for $20,000, but let's deal, right? That would be the worst negotiating skills ever, right? So you get together, you haggle back and forth, right? And we say, okay, they decide $27,000 for the car. Now, economists would say, who benefits from this trade? Who benefits and who wins, right? Most students will say, oh, well, the seller wins because they have, right, they're the producer. In this case, they have a surplus of $7,000. The consumer surplus is, what is that, 5,000, right? $5,000. Well, the producer made more, has more surplus. That's not how we look at it, right? If you really didn't want to pay $27,000 for the car, you wouldn't have paid $27,000. You guys, right? You shook hands and you're happy. You would have paid 32, but you paid 27. You should be happy. The producer would have accepted 20, but they sold it for 27. Of course they're happy, yeah. But you both made out on the deal. You both had a surplus. And nobody's ever going to know this. Nobody's ever going to know these numbers right here, right? You don't buy something and then after go, okay, I would have paid this much. How much would you have, right? You don't do that. So you leave and you're both happy. I hope. If you're not, then you need to look at your negotiating skills a little better, right? So a surplus for both. Great. Okay. Now let's bring this out into society and let's imagine most people are saying, okay, $27,000 for a car. At this price, right, we have producer surplus. These are all the producers that would be happy and able and would really benefit from selling the car at 27. They make a surplus, right? Some are willing and able to sell it for only, let's say 26, some for 20. We'll make this 20,000, right? They would have been able to sell it for 20. Some can only sell it for 26, right? So some of the producers are going to make a surplus more than others. If we have this up here as 32,000, right? Some people, that's their max. Some people are only able to spend, 27,000 they would have spent $27,500 and they would have only made a surplus of $500 or whatever. But this line, think of this triangle, right? It's not a perfect triangle, sorry. But think of this as a bunch of, let's just get the math out of it. Let's just look at it theoretically. This is made up of a bunch of people that would have paid a higher than $27,000 price, but didn't. So they're happy. Producer surplus is a bunch of sellers who would have sold it for less than $27,000 and more than $20,000 and would have made a surplus. Either way, they're happy. They make something. Now imagine the government comes in and says, we are going to make a surplus and we're going to put a price floor in here. We want to protect car manufacturers or car producers. And we're going to put a price floor in here and we're going to say $30,000. It can't be sold for less than $30,000. Now, if you're looking at the graph, you're recognizing, okay, all of these people are no longer benefit from that, right? They no longer benefit. All of these people that were on this demand curve right here no longer benefit. Now, you may look at this and think, oh, well, producers love this because their producer surplus is going to be all of this. And that is wrong. That is not what's going to happen. Okay? What's going to happen is, in the long run, this is going to be the new price. Right? And this is going to be the new quantity. I'll call it Q new. This price floor has created it. So these people right here are all out of luck. Producer surplus is only going to increase to here now. Right? We'll get rid of this because that's no longer than, right? Consumer surplus is going to shrink because only the people getting consumer surplus are the only ones that are willing and able to pay $30,000 or more. So all of these people are out as consumers. And here's the big one. This area right here is going to be our loss to society, meaning this quantity right here, whatever number that is going to be our deadweight loss to society. Why? Because nobody's going to buy it. And if nobody's going to buy it, nobody's going to produce it because producers aren't dumb, right? They're going to make as many as they're going to sell. And so producer surplus might gain a little bit, but for society, we are not happy, right? This is not good because we have a loss and we do not want a loss. We'd actually be better off, and so would producers, if we let the price drop. And vice versa. If they were to put a price ceiling in here, right, consumer surplus would eat up producer surplus and producers would be out. And in the long run, we'd go without because producers wouldn't produce cars. So the only people being able to buy cars would be people that would buy expensive cars. So in that case, it'd be best to let the price increase a little bit, right? In other words, what this graph and what consumer surplus and producer surplus and deadweight loss is trying to teach us is that it's best to just let people freely get into a market and negotiate a price. Now, that is very intro level and that's very simple thinking. There are ways economically and efficiently that we can help people. Well, what about people who can't afford a car and need a car, right? There are other things that we can think about. Should we provide public transportation? Can we provide subsidies for certain groups of people and so on? Remember, we're never going to be fully efficient, but how can we be as efficient as possible as a government and help those people in need as well? So I just want to make that caveat as well in there. I don't want you to think, a lot of people think economics is just cruel. Well, what about what about all these other people? There are things that we can do, but for the most part, this is just kind of an idea to get you thinking about why price controls generally are not looked at highly among economists. All right, until next time.